There are four types of memory in a Cisco router or switch. There's ROM, or read-only memory, which is non-volatile. That is to say, it's always the same even when you unplug the machine. It holds the power-on self-test and some other diagnostic software, a bootloader, and a miniature inter-network operating system that's used for diagnostics. There's RAM, or random access memory. This is empty when the router or switch is first turned on, but it holds the currently running operating system once it's in use, and then the running configuration and routing tables, MAC address tables, and other tables that exist during operation. There's flash memory, which is much like a flash drive that you might plug into a computer, except it's built inside. It holds the operating system images, and you can have various versions of the operating system available to you, and a default running config file, which is loaded into RAM upon booting if there's no startup config file, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. There's NVRAM, which is very much like flash memory. In fact, it may be part of the same physical memory in newer systems. It holds a startup config file, which is really a saved running config file. It's saved to this location, and then when the system is booted up, it loads back into the system. Now, if that doesn't exist, then this default running config will be put there instead. Let's walk through the 5 steps of the boot process. The first step is when ROM runs the POST, or diagnostic software. It checks out the CPU, the RAM, flash, and NVRAM to make sure they're all working properly. The next step is when ROM runs this bootstrap program. The third step is when the bootstrap program initializes the CPU, sets up the registers and so forth that the CPU will be needing to run the system. Next, the bootstrap program initializes flash. It reads this information so it knows how to load and what to load into RAM. Next, RAM is finally populated. The operating system that you've selected to run on that router or switch is loaded. And then if there's a startup config file, that is loaded and becomes the current running config. If there is no startup config file saved, then the default running config will be loaded into RAM, and space is created for future tables like routing tables, MAC address tables, VLAN tables, and other tables that are used in the system.